Hello, welcome to A Tinge of Ginge and welcome to the next part of my Nano 350 build. Now today the materials I ordered have finally come. I can finally decorate the background for this tank. I'm really excited. I'm going to show you what I've got to actually put onto the polystyrene that I carved out. And I think this is going to make it absolutely pop. It's going to make it look really, really amazing. I'll talk you through why I've gone through what I've gone for. So it's more for my own personal reasons, but I'll tell you all about that anyway. So we're going to get all of that designed, and hopefully once that is set, we may be able to actually silicone this background into the tank. I am going to be water testing this tank now because it's been left for a good week and a half basically. So I'm happy that everything is cured properly. It's probably a bit overkill, but I just wanted to give it as much time as possible because obviously that silicone underneath the glass, it's not got any air to it, so I just wanted to make sure it was 100% cured before I went ahead and tested this tank. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. It's going to be quite a short video because there's not really a lot else I can show you. If you watched the last video, you saw what I actually did to the background and how I textured it. I am going to change a few more bits, so there's a bit more that I need to texture underneath, but apart from that, I'm just going to get straight into doing this, and yeah, I'm really excited to see how it's going to turn out. So this is the insert as it stands. You might have been wondering why this top section here isn't textured. Now, I'm going to leave that as it is because the water's not going to come up too high. The water's going to come to about here, so this part isn't actually going to be in the water. So I've tried to make that as aesthetically pleasing as possible. I do need to fill in some gaps here, but that's fine, I can do that, it's not a problem. But I wanted to leave that dead flat just so that it makes it look a little bit more neater for me for when you look at the tank from the top. So that's why I've left that bit. This section along here, you can't really see now because I have changed it, but this section here was flat before, so I've just textured that a bit more. And I did say about the bottom bit I was just going to leave this flat, but I decided I'm going to texture that as well because I thought if I'm doing it for everything else, I might as well not skip in this section. My OCD is just so bad that I keep looking at it and it's really bugging me, so I am going to be changing that as well. Now, what I'm going to be sticking to this is this stuff here. Now, I'm not sponsored by this company. It's the first time I've ever heard of them, but I've gone for, it doesn't show here, but once I get it on there, you'll see this is like a black gravel. Now I've gone for black because I felt that it's just going to stand out on this rock a little bit more. It's going to give it a little bit more texture. I'm going to be using a very fine white sand for the base, and I just didn't want the base and the background to kind of merge into one. So that's why I've gone for a black gravel for this backdrop. And also, when I put the corals on this, obviously I want to get some very nice bright corals. It's just going to make them stand out and pop that a little bit more. And I think once the coral and algae starts growing on this background with the purple and the black, I think it's just going to mix together perfectly, and it's just going to make everything pop on this tank. So that's what I'm going to be sticking to the actual backdrop, and I'm just going to be using some aquarium safe silicone just to make sure that it's not going to harm anything. It will be rinsed out a couple of times just to make sure there are no toxins or anything horrible in the tank. So that's the next couple of steps. I hope you enjoy. So what I started off doing was using the silicone. I just made sure I pushed that silicone all the way into all the crevices of the polystyrene. From where I've made it so rough, there's a lot of jagged edges that I need to get into. So I wanted to do a nice thick layer of silicone all the way over the background, and I just needed to massage that into all the crevices just to make sure I've got a nice good cover going around all the seams as well. Once that was done, I got the black gravel and I literally just sprinkled it all over. Now, I put quite a thick layer of this black gravel on. I wanted to make sure that I got full coverage of the silicone just to give the black gravel as much of a chance to stick to that as possible. And you can see I go over it a couple of times because as I was sprinkling the gravel on, certain parts it would fall off the edge and it wouldn't quite stick to the silicone. So it's just a case of keep going over the entire thing, make sure there's a nice thick layer overall. And you can see the gravel's quite coarse, so I needed to make sure I had enough in place so that when I pressed down on it, it did actually stick to it quite well. Now, when I pressed down, I didn't want to press too hard. I needed to make sure I put just enough pressure on that the gravel would stick to the silicone. I didn't want to press hard that it would actually disperse that silicone out of the way. Now, once that was dried, I left it for about half hour to dry, As you can see, once I tipped it off, all the gravel came off fairly well, but it did stick quite nicely. There are little areas of the white polystyrene coming through, but that's not a problem because I was just going to go back and go over those and touch those up. So once that was done, I started working on the overhang. Now this is probably one of the more important parts because there's quite a lot of seams on this. So with the silicone, I made sure to go around that seam of that top bit of the rock quite a few times. And what I was trying to do is I'm just trying to push enough silicone into that gap just to make sure that I've actually got a nice blending of the two, if you like. It's like when you do any sort of building work, you want to try and make it as seamless as possible. So I wanted to go over those seams just to try and make it blend in nicely. Once that was done, I went over the flat parts just to make sure, again, all those divots that I made were nice and compressed down with the silicone, just to make sure there's enough there for the black gravel to stick on, and the same on the sides, just getting into all the nooks and crannies. And then, as the same as I did with the base, I went over the entire thing, sprinkling the gravel over, giving it a nice good lay. You can see I sort of tipped the insert upright as it would be sat in a tank. If I was to keep it flat and I tried pouring the gravel on, it'd be almost impossible to get that gravel to stick. So I laid it on the bottom so it was nice and sturdy, sprinkled the gravel all the way over, and you can see I'm going over and I'm patting down. Now I had to be careful with this because it was quite fragile. I didn't want to push too hard, so I gave it a little pat all the way over and all the way around the sides. I then tipped all the excess off just to see if I'd managed to miss any. You can see it turned out really well. After that, I flipped it over, and again with the bottom you can see it's dead flat, so this was just a case of smoothing that silicone over in a nice layer. I didn't go too thin with it because again this gravel's quite heavy, so I needed to put quite a lot of silicone on there so it would stick. And then, like I've done with the rest, just went over the top, poured a nice layer of gravel on top, worked around the edges really well, compressing it all down, even getting into where that silicone and the polystyrene meet the main background bit, making sure I push that gravel all the way in to make sure it got a nice good stick. And then as you can see, I poured it off and there was a perfect layer there, and you can see it looks absolutely amazing. And then with the little bits that were going on the top of the tank, it was just a case of just covering two surfaces, the front section there and the top section that you're going to see from the top of the tank. And with this, rather than sprinkling the gravel on, you can see I've got all the gravel on the tray there. It was just a case of pushing it into there nice and firmly, and I could be quite rough with this because I didn't have to worry about squashing down any of the silicone or getting rid of any of the lumps and bumps that I've made. And I did this for both the little square bits that go on the sides as well, pushing down nice and firm, just making sure I've got a nice good coverage on that polystyrene. And you can see as I lift it up, it's made quite a nice uniform covering, and this is how it turned out. Right, so this is where I'm at so far, and as you can see, everything is basically covered. Now, because this sand is quite a coarse sand, I don't know if I can zoom in enough to show you, but it's quite a coarse sand, so you can see there's slightly bigger pieces than a finer sand. And so what that's doing is, it's not adhering to the silicone straight away, so you can see there's certain areas that are still white. And that's just from where the weight of it just hasn't stuck in that area, which isn't a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this to cure overnight. I'm going to give it 24 hours because I am working tomorrow. So I'm going to leave this to cure. And then once it is all dry and solid, I'm then going to go over those bits, all these bits here and here. I'm going to touch them up just to make sure that it is completely covered. And then once that's done, I can then get that into the tank, silicone it in place, and then touch up any other bits around the edges that I need to do. I'm really happy with the way it's turning out. It's basically exactly what I was thinking. You can see that it does actually look like rock work. Once those white bits are all covered, it's actually going to look like a huge piece of lava rock, which is what I was kind of going for. You can see on the edges here, there is slight white areas as well. But again, it's not a problem. I'm going to go over this with a paintbrush and the silicone, and I'm going to use the paintbrush just to dab in all those bits and then add a little bit more of this gravel onto it. So that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. The tank outside is absolutely perfect. It hasn't leaked yet, but again, I'm going to leave that for a couple of days just to make sure that it doesn't leak and everything is sound. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video here for now. I'm going to pick the camera up again tomorrow, and then we'll go through and we'll finish all the other bits. And once this is all stuck and it's looking proper, then we can get it mounted in the tank. It's going to be a couple of days before I actually put it into the tank, just because I do want to leave it out there for as long as possible just to see if it does leak or not. So that's set, this is setting. Hopefully in a couple of days we'll have this part finished and I'll be able to upload it. So I'll see you tomorrow. It's the next day and I think I've got the insert to the point that I'm happy. I have tried to cover all of the white bits, but there are just certain bits that I just can't get the sand stick to. And again, it's not a problem because once the coralline algae starts to grow in this, and also once I add the corals and things like that, I can hide any imperfections that I'm not happy with the coral, and the coralline algae will grow over it anyway. So I'm not too worried about that. So this is how it looks finally done. Check that out. Now this is going to look completely different when it's in the tank. Obviously I'm going to be putting some really nice LED lights on this, so it's going to create all those perfect shadows that I'm looking for. But yeah, that's just absolutely incredible. I'm really happy. I think the coarse gravel that I went for was a really good idea. Now this does look slightly yellowy on that, and that's just because of the lights in this room, but in real life when you turn the lights up, this thing is absolutely jet black, and that's going to be improved even more once I get the blue LEDs on and actually get this glowing. It's going to look absolutely incredible. So that's the background as it stands, and I'm now ready to get it into the tank. So I'm going to get it installed and see how it actually looks. And here it is, and there we go. I think that looks absolutely amazing. Now you need to remember, this isn't the final end to this. We do need to do a lot more to this just to make it look a little bit more realistic. So these side panels, remember, these aren't going to be seen. All of this is going to be covered. I'm going to be getting some thick black tape, and I'm going to be putting that all the way down, so that's going to be all marked out in black, so you're not going to see any of that. I'm going to do that for both the sides, but I'm going to worry about the back because the back is going to be covered. And then you can see on top where I've got the inlet and the outlet, I've got one there and I've just got one there. Both of those are still showing, but I'm going to get some pieces of polystyrene. I'm just going to put them at the top and then apply sand both of those to hide them, and also around the front and the inside there I'm going to apply silicone to all of that, put sand in there as well, and just make sure that's all hidden. Now you can see there is this seam that runs along the top just there. I'm going to be putting some more silicone in there as well, putting some sand on that just to make that all nice and neat. And then down the edges, I think the edges of the tank actually look pretty decent. I will take a closer look. I mean, there are some white areas, see here, there's some white areas. So I may have to dab a little bit more silicone onto that and put some sand onto that as well. But that's not a problem, that's going to be fine. I do still need to silicone this background in. Unfortunately, I've run out of silicone. Doing all of this used up an entire tube of silicone, which I'm not complaining about since I think it's turned out absolutely amazing. But yeah, I'm waiting for that to be ordered, so that should be here within the next couple of days. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to silicone all the way around this backdrop, because obviously I've got the silicone on the back of the tank. You can see the amount of silicone that I actually put on the back here just to repair that crack in the glass. I know that's a complete seal because I've tested it and I'm really happy with that, but I'm still worried that maybe at some point it may leak. So what I'm going to do is around the whole edge of this, go all the way along down here where this polystyrene section is, I'm going to be putting a huge bead of silicone along there, all the way along the bottom, on the other side, and then when I push that background into place, that's just going to create a complete seal all the way around the polystyrene. And also this top section here, you can see there's a bit of a gap in between the polystyrene and that glass. Obviously that's going to be pushed right up against the glass, but that's also going to be completely filled with silicone just in there. Going to completely fill that section with silicone as well, and that means there's going to be a full silicone bond all the way around the polystyrene, and that's just going to be another barrier to try and stop that water from penetrating behind. All of this is going to be siliconed in as well. I'm going to put a load of silicone around here just to secure all that. Same with this stuff all the way around that, just to try and stop any water getting behind that. So that's the plan for the next video. Again, I won't go into it too much in the next video because you have seen the majority of it on here, so it will just be showing you the highlights of what I've done. Now the next part of this video is I'm going to be working on the sump. Now if you missed out on the first couple of parts of this build, then you would have missed I actually made the frame, and the frame actually houses the sump, which is below. Make sure you go and check out them videos, because I've tried to make this as structurally sound as possible so it can actually take the weight of the tank. I've jumped up and down this frame so I know if it can take my weight. I'm about 78 kilos, 80 kilos when I've had a decent meal. So yeah, it can take quite a lot of weight, and I'm pretty happy that's going to be able to take the weight of that tank. Now this is the sump underneath. Now it's not much smaller than the main tank. I'd say it's probably about 25%, no, not even that, probably about 15% smaller. So the sump's going to hold quite a lot of water in itself. And I am going to be dividing this up into sections using baffles. So the next video I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be working on the sump and getting those baffles put in place. And once that's done, hopefully by then, the wood for this frame would have come. And then once that wood's there, I can put that wood on the side, get the insulating foam as well for the inside of these panels, just to make sure that I make all this as quiet as possible. And then hopefully once that's all together, we can actually get this tank filled up and we can start cycling it and getting it ready. Also, I do need to pick out a piece of rock that's going to go here, because remember we've got this floating shelf that comes out, and then I wanted like a piece of rock here that sort of comes to about there in height, and that's going to be like a little piece of rock that's coming out of the sand. So I also need to go and pick that up, but there's no rush for that. Again, I'm not going to be using any live sand or any live rock in this. Everything is going to be completely from the start, because I want this tank to be as pristine as possible, and I don't want to drag any other algae or anything like that that's going to ruin the tank. So that's going to be one of the next steps, going out and buying that piece of rock. And you can already see, look at that, you see that shadow that that's creating? That's exactly what I wanted. So you can imagine the white sand in the bottom of this tank, that's going to have that little shadow over there. And then if you imagine, if you've watched LED lights in a fish tank, it has like that crazy ripply effect. It's going to create that effect all the way around the shadow except for that bit, and I think it's just going to make it look so realistic and natural. I really can't wait to see this thing once it's up and running. So that's going to be the end of this part. I really do hope you're enjoying it so far. It is taking a long time, but you've got to bear in mind, I do work a full-time job. I do have a load of snakes to look after, and there are other things that I do in my spare time. So I'm trying to dedicate as much time as I can to this as possible, but obviously with everything that's going on in the world, I don't have the materials to hand and actually to go out and actually get them myself. Everything I have to do has to be ordered, and a lot of the orders are being pushed back because of the situation we're in. So bear with me. I am posting updates on my Instagram at Tinge of Ginge, so if you do want to get a sneak peek ahead of what's happening with these videos, go over there, subscribe to that, and make sure that you follow it along there as well. And even while you're there, check out some of the other pictures that I've got on there. I've got a lot of my snakes on there and a few other bits and bobs that I've been doing throughout as well. So I really hope you're enjoying the build so far. Make sure you do follow it from start to finish, because it's going to be so worth it. It's going to look absolutely incredible. I hope you've enjoyed. Please go over to my Instagram, give me a follow, subscribe to my YouTube if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Clippy things, secateurs.